Hello, I have the pleasure to be seated here today with Jan Smedts. Hello, Jan. You are the head of Digital Flanders, one of the European pioneers in digital transformation, and recently also very busy with the rollout of AI in the public sector. Jan, Digital Flanders has recently published its Flemish AI strategy and also launched its AI competence center. What role do you see AI playing in enhancing interoperability, and how can it be leveraged to be able to provide services to citizens in a trustful way?
Well, a very important role. Obviously, the acceleration we see in technology is unprecedented. We've had the internet, we had the mobile, we have AI, and I strongly believe that AI will be an intrinsic part in the way we design our public services. And it goes beyond the whole ChatGPT and personal efficiency. What we're looking at is more on the transformative side, how we can use AI in making predictions. And if you would link that with interoperability, I would actually put it the other way around. I think interoperability is what we need to make sure that AI will be as successful as we think it can be.
As in the support it will need to give from an interoperability perspective to make all of the pieces of the puzzle fit.
Yes, I think when the data needs to be ready for AI, and only then your organization will be ready for AI. And when we actually, the real value is when data will be able to talk to each other, and then obviously interoperability is key.
Talking about data being able to talk to each other, do you think the Interoperable Europe Act that has recently been launched will also help in regard to this?
Yes, it will. I think this is kind of the GDPR moment for interoperability. I strongly believe, and I also feel that there's a lot of support for interoperability, but it's not always easy to implement, and I think this legislative proposal will definitely be a booster for that.
Okay. Do you think it will buy some political willingness as well to invest in it, because interoperability can be a bit harder in the beginning to get it right and have a return on investment later? Do you think this will help that?
I think it's just not easy to implement. I think that conceptually everybody agrees on how we make data communicate. But the returns on the interoperability is not always there where the data sits. And I think that's in essence why we need this framework to move ahead.
Speaking then of Flanders, if we talk about implementing is hard, right? What are some of the challenges in Flanders that you need to deal with in terms of interoperability?
Well, I think the typical one is the high quality data. That's where it starts. I think it's in the core of what governments do. It is to collect the data, to make it work, and to manage it. And that's indeed the basic ingredient of a successful strategy. Secondly, standardization. Now, in Flanders, we've had a long history in standardization with the Oslo standards, going back to 2012. But it is and it will remain an issue. And if you combine that with a third factor, which is a trust, I'm only willing to share my data if I know it will be stored or treated, with the security environment, but also on the privacy side. So I think, it's quality of the data, standardization, and trust are the three main challenges.
Okay. I know it's hard to predict the future, but let's try anyways.
Yeah.
In terms of challenges, I don't think a lot of people realized before that the impact of AI, how big it could be or would be. Do you see similar trends happening right now where you think as an organization we need to already start thinking about this now?
Well, I see definitely more than only AI as a challenge. I think the context where we're operating in is changing. I think we had the COVID crisis, clearly. We had the energy crisis. We have the geopolitical situation elsewhere in the world. And I think that's putting a lot of pressure on how governments have designed their processes. So I think the challenge will be to be more than agile enough to actually have those policy responses to that changing context. So I think that is what we're looking at, and that's where the whole data environment and the ability to move quickly will be important, and that's what we actually invest in. The way we do it is by clustering some of our capabilities, and I strongly believe that platform as a government as a platform is the way forward.
That brings me to my next question. Talking about the creation of Atumi and the Flemish data utility company, which is also a bit of a first in Europe, that government would create a company like that. Why did you create Atumi? And what is the role you believe the government should play as the platform?
Yeah. Let me first start with saying that actually the creation of Atumi has been an evolution, and not a revolution. An evolution because we have always been, within Flanders and within the agency, very strong with data. And what we've seen, and it started back in also 2010, 2012, where sharing data has been crucial initially as an answer to a policy objective. But we've seen that as a government, we can play that neutral third-party role in making sure that there's a data sharing between the private and the public sector. Now, that role, that facilitating role, needs to be neutral, and needs to be built on trust. And that's where we believe, as a government, we should step in, and hence we've created Atumi. It has been an enormous ride, if I can say, because it wasn't new, as you rightly said, but I strongly believe that that's the way forward not only for Flanders, but for Europe as a whole.
That's where you want to show the way to...
Absolutely.
Yeah. A closing question, and a bit more general. You can take this wherever you want, but how can SEMIC support this? You talked about the readiness for change, the difficulty sometimes with implementation of interoperability. How can SEMIC support all of this in Flanders?
Well, I think if looking at the challenges that I just described, that's not something that we can do on our own. And I think nobody can. And I strongly believe that cooperation is the way forward. And I think SEMIC plays a very important role, not only in promoting the interoperability, because that's cross-border cooperation, but also bringing the right people together to make sure that indeed we can lay out that strategy in a one framework and one way forward. And we're very happy from an agency perspective to contribute, and more than today, I think also for tomorrow.
Happy to hear that. Thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.